So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this webinar of the third week of our course on the recognition of prior learning. I see you guys are connecting slowly. I mean, I thought you found the unit not yet open, so there was a small challenge to get into the webinar, but we have solved it, and I see all slowly coming in. More than 30 participants were already in the course platform looking for the link for the webinar. Good morning, Deborah. As usual, we start with Deborah because she got up very early. Deborah, how early today? Deborah, what time is it now in Barbados?
Good morning. It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
5 o'clock in the morning. So yes. That's
it's not as bad as last time.
Not as bad as last time, yeah, because last time it was 3:30 in the morning. So actually, it's good. We welcome also all the colleagues that are there. Maria, happy to see you.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Great to be here again.
Great. We shall wait maybe a couple of minutes because I see the numbers are rising because we opened up the platform a bit later on than expected. But in any case, I'm going to briefly introduce the topic of our discussion today. So after the first two modules that were related more on the basics and on the, let's say, a general discussion around the key concepts for recognition of prior learning. And last week we discussed around the challenges. So first of all, I want to really put that into this context. So this third week, we start, let's say, discussing the various steps of the process, of the RPL process. And we start with the very first, but also a very critical one. That is, let's say, awareness raising and career guidance that are key steps of the RPL process. I want to remind what happened last week because I think it was quite amazing. A few of us were in the first Wonder.me kind of session of our course. So I saw you were there happily discussing for 1 hour after I left, but I was checking on this, and it was amazing how many discussions have come. And I also thought it was a very interesting way of exchanging among you. And it is a little bit, sometimes we don't have the space in this digital world to take a coffee together, but that was a little bit the way through which we could do that. And I saw very interesting discussion on quality assurance, on the assessment methods, on financing, so several of the topics that we are going to cover in the upcoming weeks. But I was also very interested in setting up this webinar because we clarify through also the pre-course survey that you did in the very first week, how this awareness raising component is really critical to the success of your RPL system, and how you also see this topic as one of the ones for which you have room for improvement in your system. So we decided in this webinar to actually cover two interesting topics. So on one side, how to set up a communication for a public campaign, which is the situation in which many of your countries are regarding their RPL system. And to do that, we will have today with us Alexa Wibernik. Alexa, you can briefly introduce yourself. Then I will also introduce Simon and Adza, and then the floor back to you, but maybe you want to introduce yourself first.
Sure. So thank you, Stefano, and I am glad to be here, even though we are virtual today. So my name is Alexa, and I work on the communications team at the ITC ILO. And basically, I'm specialized in writing, copywriting, editing, proofreading. I love words, so everything that has to do with words especially goes through me. and yeah, I think that you'll hear more from me soon.
Thanks. And today we are also have with us Simon and Aza from Skill Lab. So you will find that, I mean, there was a tricky question on the use of artificial intelligence in the pre-course test. So you are going to get the answer to that specific question today from Simon and Aza, even if they don't know it. But I mean, no, they know the answer, but they didn't know that I had a specific question in our questionnaire related to you. But so Skill Lab is an interesting enterprise, I would say, but I would let maybe Simon and Adza just briefly introduce themselves, and then more from them on the second part of this webinar. I don't know who goes first.
You're muted.
Okay, yeah, thank you for this introduction, Stefano, and I am really so excited to see what the question and what the answers of this question about Skill Lab. So I will start by myself. I am Azza Al-Hayek. I am a co-founder and work at Skill Lab. We in Skill Lab developed a tool using artificial intelligence system to help people to capture their skills and explore even their skills and to connect them to relevant training and sustainable jobs. Simon will tell you more about the Skill Lab. I will tell you more about how to use the Skill Lab in identifying those skill gaps and how our tool is used in covering those skill gaps. In Skill Lab, I am working in the customer success team. I am working directly with our partners and the users and help them to use our application and to get the best out of our tool.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Simon Schmidt. I'm mostly responsible for the public sector work that we do at Skill Lab, so working with public employment services, national training authorities, etc. And while my colleague Azza has all the real world hands-on experience, for me it's more like the theoretical background and kind of the underpinning of how our tool works and how our tool is situated within the context of national qualification systems, etc. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that before Azza will actually show you how our tool works in the real world. So and again, yeah, thank you, Stefano. Thank you, ITC ILO, for having us. It's really exciting. And thank you all for getting up at very strange times of the night or during the day or in the evening or whatever time it might be where you currently are. It's really exciting to present to you.
Thank you very much. And this webinar will also mark the first time in which our participants will also take the floor, because we will have also Anne's presentation about awareness raising activities on RPL in Kenya. So thanks also to Anne, who will be co-panelist of this webinar. But without further ado, I will leave the floor to Alexa to start with the first topic.
Okay, so I will try to share my screen. Okay. Okay, is it working? Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So thanks again to everyone. Again, happy to be here. And today I'm going to talk about strategic communications. So like I said, I love words. I also love design, art, and of course, communication in all of its forms. And there are many. So let's just jump right to it. So I wanted to start today by inviting you to think about something. And I just want you to think about it. You don't have to tell me, but just keep it in mind. So my question for you is, when was the last time that a story or an article or an advertisement really caught your eye? Something that made you stop and stare and think? So take a second, think about it. So why? what was it about this communication thing that really hooked you, that really got you to pay attention? Well, whatever it was, good for them, good for whoever made this, good for whoever came up with this idea, because grabbing attention is one of the hardest things to do today. So we have our usual problem. You have to engage an audience. Attention span is in really short supply. So before we even start, we have a problem. We are collectively suffering from an information overload. People have no time, or they think that they don't. So how can you engage your audience? I mean, there are so many ways that you can do this, but you have to find out what works for you, for your team, and your target audience. So maybe you make a website, or maybe that doesn't make sense for you and your team and your target audience. So you need something more low tech. So you make posters and you put them at bus stops or around town. Or maybe that doesn't make sense for you and your team and your target audience. And so you need to make something more engaging, like a radio show, for example. The point is, there is no one size fits all solution. And I can't tell you what it would be. It doesn't exist. But you need to start somewhere. So where do you start? So I'll give you a helpful guide, which is our usual strategy. Or maybe it's unusual, because if you don't work on a communications team, it might not be your usual strategy. So what is it? So basically, we have inform, inspire, and act. So this is our trilogy for strategic communication: inform, inspire, act. So basically, what does this mean? So basically, you need to inform people, in this case, about your RPL system, so they know that it exists, by inspiring them, which is the core of your communications plan, to take action. So in this case, probably to learn more, to sign up, certify skills. So the inspire pillar, the middle, it's really where the communication strategy comes in. So the key takeaway is people act when they feel inspired. So this is the broadest way of thinking about this, the broadest way of putting it. And of course, there's much more to strategic communication than just this, but we'll keep it simple. So basically, so let's start, inform. So what does it mean? The best way to connect with people is really through stories. It's always a good idea to put a human face to your project or your idea. So you can think about this inform phase as the ideation phase. You're doing research, you're crafting your story, your communications product or plan. It's basically how you approach your communications project. And you should keep in mind that every project has a human dimension, and every human has a story to tell. So moving on to the inspire pillar, the real core of what we're talking about today. Inspire. How do you inspire people? You should try to spark empathy. So that can happen, especially when you share stories and experiences and journeys. So you need to find out where people are spending their time and their energy. You have to talk to people and ask them to share their stories and their experiences. This is really human-centered. Maybe you've heard of human-centered communications. It's really a buzzword today. So this is the human-centered communication phase, and it is super important. This is when you're doing interviews, you're gathering testimonials, you're shooting videos. I'll show you some concrete examples later, don't worry. But really, it's all about letting people tell their stories, take control. It's about trust. It's about reliability. People trust certain people to tell certain stories. There's room for creativity in this phase. So there are creative ways to reach out to your target audiences in ways that will make sense to them. So you need to find out where people are and meet them there. And then the last phase is the act phase. So this is where you're achieving your goals and making an impact. This is really the bridge between your communications outreach and your ultimate goal. This is where you get what you want or you need. It's all about convincing people. And how do you do that? Through empathy. Remember, you are not your target audience. You really need to guide people to the action that you want them to take. So you have to make it easy and simple. And you can't just tell people what to do. You have to show them how and why. Okay, so now we move into the case studies. I have two that I wanted to share today. So the first one is a campaign that was in Italy. It was called Dignità in Campo. So that means basically dignity in the field. And it was all about transparent agricultural work. And the challenge was really creating a community and a mutual understanding between seasonal workers and local people. So the strategy was a very grassroots approach. It was not super digital or high tech. It was really going out and meeting people where they are, like I said. So some of the channels were brochures, flyers, posters outside, like outdoors, in meeting spaces, places where people congregate. And it had a really important impact. It did raise awareness about the problem and promoted sustainable work, and it helped to protect seasonal workers. You can click on this and learn more. I think Stefano will upload the presentation after this. And the second case study was this green enterprise project in Zimbabwe. One of my favorite examples, I think this one is super cool. The idea was to develop citizens' business ideas into action plans. So this was also a very low-tech approach. And what they did was created a live radio training program where they interviewed like local entrepreneurs, and they even assigned homework to listeners. The podcasts are still available online. And it helped more than 200 aspiring entrepreneurs to develop their business ideas. And it's super simple. So basically, simple solutions work. This is what so many successful communications projects have in common. It's simple, low tech. You don't need to make a fancy website if that is not what you and your team and your target audience need. You might not even need to use the internet. Again, if it doesn't make sense to your target audience, don't do it. Again, meet them where they are, show, don't tell. In the first case study, those direct messages on signs at bus stops really spoke to people. And in the second one, all that people needed to succeed was a radio. So don't discount the power of like real life communications. And don't forget that we are really overloaded with information. So you should always try to make it feel special and real and unique. So on this slide, I have a couple of low-tech communications ideas. One is like mobile phone videos. So going out, shooting videos in the field, asking people to make a selfie video and send it to you, stuff like that. Local radio shows, so like I just described, they can be really powerful communications tools, and you should not discredit radio. Targeted games. People like to play games. A lot of learning now is gamified, and there's no reason why not communication can also be gamified. And then street art. Street art for development specifically, it's getting really popular. And then some more examples of communications ideas include some more traditional, let's say, ideas like press releases, events, partnerships, letters to the editor in a local newspaper, even brochures. So what are your challenges? Why do you think that you maybe can't do some of this? You can overcome all of them. So if the excuse is that you don't know how to identify with people, keep them front of mind right from the start. Always keep them in mind, and you won't have to deal with this problem later, basically. If your product is made for people, it's going to work. We don't have experience, don't worry. It's a skill that can be learned. And we don't have enough time. Well, if you spend more time early in the communication process, in the ideation phase, you can save time on having to make changes after the launch. And that is it. All right. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexa.
Yep.
Now questions to the floor. Many of you have written, for us, it is difficult to actually do our communication campaigns. Awareness raising is difficult. People are not knowing what is going to happen, how our RPL system is constructed, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Do maybe someone wants to explain a bit more what are the difficulties that you are finding, also to resonate with what Alexa was presenting.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious, because also I looked at the participants list and a lot of you work in really different positions in different parts of the world. So please tell me, what are your specific problems?
Lakshman, I saw your mic is open. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit more of what is happening?
The publicity, what you are taking on, is not be costly about the publicity for RPL compared to that what the government is saying.
I think we have lost you. It was breaking. Can you tell us once again?
Yes, the publicity. We are making a publicity for attracting people for the RPL, for the conducting of RPL, which will be not very costly for the government organization to do this publicity to promote the RPL, because we are conducting exam, and the exam is more reliable than the RPL. And do you think that the publicity made by the RPL will be attractive to the government or attractive to the candidates?
Okay, and so you have a kind of competition.
Contradiction.
Yeah, contradiction. Okay, but what is the difficult thing? Is to communicate that you have to pay for RPL? What is the problem?
Yeah, we are conducting exam, and then the RPL is the alternative. We have both sides here, but people are no more willing to come from the RPL to have the assessment done quite quickly than other than to go to the assessment, normal assessment. If we belong the contradictory to the government, people are having a formal qualification, otherwise to have a RPL.
Okay, but is the communication going well in Mauritius?
Yes, the communication is going on very well, but the concept is different for the RPL. The concept for a candidate for having an RPL is different. more people are willing to come for the normal assessment.
Okay, so it's a matter of explaining the two different.
Yes, it's a method of explaining the both system here, because we have both system. The RPL is here, the normal assessment are here. We have to make the both system go together.
Okay, so this is a very specific. And what are the tools that you are using to communicate with the people?
You know, the Morses Qualification Authority have made a radio publicity, a TV propaganda in the press, and they have make awareness in the campaign awareness in hotels, in industry. But some people have come from the hotel industry, some people have come for the RPL, but they are not willing too much because they are willing to have a formal qualification, formal training qualification, because it is very, you know, a bit expensive, or a bit taking too much time, a bit searching all the portfolio, preparing the documentary evidence and so on.
Okay, okay, thank you. From the colleagues in Liberia, I know you are starting with your RPL system. What are your initial thoughts in terms of the awareness raising of the potential users? Patrick, I don't know, maybe you want to come in and tell us a little bit how you are conceiving this thing.
Good morning. Hello.
Hello, please go ahead.
Okay. So in Liberia, when it comes to the awareness for the potential user, from what Mrs. Alexa just explained, I see more or less it is for the beneficiary, the students who are going to be accessed. They are the one the awareness is targeted towards. But our issue is, how do we communicate the awareness to the stakeholders, particularly the private sector, who are the employers, who will see these qualifications and accept them, and secondly, the government, who will say, okay, we agree that we should have a formal way of evaluating people based on their prior knowledge. So how do we channel our communication to the private sector, who are the employer, and the government to endorse whatever the students come with? Now, from her explanation, if we do radio propaganda, we do newspaper, we do billboard, the general public will understand that, okay, there is something called RPL. I have this number of competency. I can now go to this testing center and get this documentation or this qualification. But how do the qualification be accepted by the employers, or to be approved by the national government? How do we convince government? How do we convince employer to say, okay, we have two applicants, one has RPL qualification, another one has formal education qualification. Now, how do we convince employer to take both of them as equal, competent persons? That is our challenge, bringing on board the private sector and the government. For the students, it looks quite easier, that we can easily bring them on board to have those assessments from my thought. Yeah.
There is also a question from G. Dia Bolen from Liberia. Maybe you want to take the floor?
Hello?
Yeah, please.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Teresa Gao from Liberia.
Please, go ahead.
Yes. Let my colleague explain most of what we need to see to happen. So the awareness, it needs strong support from our government, from the authority, from partners. But the RPL, very important for our country. We really need it for our learners, for people left behind, marginalized group, inclusive learning, inclusive education. So it's good for our country.
Okay, Teresa, thank you very much for getting into, I mean, as an advocate. Nyamai, you wrote something that in the chat box that is quite interesting. Do you want to share that with us?
Yes, yeah, what I try to say, two of my colleagues from Liberia have already spoken on awareness raising. You know, on the issue of communication, it may seem to be very difficult or expensive in Liberia for our community. But having read for the short time of your presentation on RPL, it's interesting. But what matters is that we have raised the awareness internationally, filtering down to Liberia to reach our government. Because so we want this support to come from the line of the INO, you know, supporting Liberia in the area of, you know, RPL. Because without, you know, the INO coming in and raising the awareness for our government to grab the concept and our lawmakers, it would be very much difficult for us to spread the information, the message concerning RPL. RPL is a kind of a strange, you know, story that we have just heard, you know, but if you can imagine, sometimes people are aware of a particular information such as learning, but until you can assess, until you can test, you will not get to know as to whether they are in the know. So RPL, I believe, bring on board most of our citizens who one way or the other might have dropped from school because of maybe some kind of difficulties. So they begin to do learning by themselves, you know, apprenticeship. So I believe with RPL, with your introduction, with your teaching, if this can come down to like, I believe we'll have most of our brothers coming on board, you know, and be certificated after having been validated. So we are very much interested, but we need a contribution from the end of NO to support Liberia in spreading out the technology.
Okay, thank you very much. This is, you are also advocating for our own intervention. I think this course is already a good one. And thanks also to UNIDO for supporting the participation of a large delegation from Liberia. Before getting to Alexa with the question on the involvement of employers and the government, which I think it's a very interesting one, I wanted to maybe go to Nyamai Wambua, who wrote something about the messenger carrier.
Yeah, I know we on. What happened? You on?
Nyamai?
Yeah,
please.
Yes, thank you very much. So, yeah, in communication, and especially targeted audience communication, I think apart from all the manner of tools, you could have all manner of tools, but I think the spokesperson of that audience or the messenger of that audience, target audience, is very key. And as it were, you know, RPL is a bit unique. And if it is, you know, communicated in the general way, then the specific audiences may not be able to get the key message, or, you know, and that is what I think. I think for the experiences that we have, government always is the main communicator of policy, general policy. That is good enough. But if you look at the users of RPL services, the target users, I think it is important to have lower levels of key messengers who are deliberately trained and you know, socialized to communicate the specific message to the target audience. And that is what I mean. The messenger is very key. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that this is also in line with the question that was raised by our colleagues in Liberia. So employers as targets group, but at the same time, Nyamai, what you're saying is very important, is that if it's only the government speaking about this, then so it would be better if actually employers would talk to employers. And in some of the countries, actually, these RPL campaigns have been implemented by employers in order to bring other employers on board in order to certify and validate the competencies of their staff. Alexa, maybe you want to comment on this multi-stakeholder nature of public campaigning.
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting problem because you have multiple target audiences. And so you need to create different communication products per target audience. That would be the best. I know that it would take a lot more work because you basically have to make 3 communications campaigns for 3 different target audiences, but it would really be the best way forward. So you should think about how to, for example, inspire an employer to start using the RPL system, for example, if I've understood this correctly. So you have to sit down and understand, okay, I'm an employer. What do I want? Where do I go? What do I need? You have to really put yourself into the shoes of the employer and find out, okay, how can I reach out to this person? When can I reach out to this person? When will they be most, I don't know, receptive to my communication campaign? In what way? What will they react to? What will make them, what will convince them, basically? So you really have to take each target audience separately if you can, because then you can create a much better communication campaign or product or whatever it is that you're creating.
So in particular, targeting the employers in order then to bring them on board to communicate with other employers. So this could be a way to go in order to maybe also for our colleagues in Liberia, an advice that could be, let's say, put in place. And maybe the floor is now yours in order to hear from your experience in Kenya. So we are very keen of leaving the floor to our participants. As you know, we put a lot of emphasis on learning among peers. So it's really nice that you actually flag the possibility from your side to present the work that you are doing. So I will give you 5 minutes and then we take a couple of questions from the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, please go ahead.
Now, just a background, Kenya, our RPL communication strategy took a slightly different approach. We have a national steering committee in place that is constituted of key members from both the government and the private sector. The reason for this is wanted from the word go, we have a participatory approach. So the input that we have on our communication strategy actually cuts across board. So when I go through, this is like our umbrella, but from this we'll be able to now extract specific activities targeting the different audiences to be able now to further engage with them. So what was our thought process? We developed this strategy thinking about our reach. What is it that we can do to ensure that we are actually reaching the target audience? Like Alexa said, where are they? How do we get to them? So that is part of the thought process that we had. We also looked at the aspect of taking action. REST is a model that we leverage on, and ACT, if I relate to what Alexa said, is an aspect of inspiration. How do we inspire this particular target audience to be able now to take that action, either register for RPL as a candidate, or if it's an employer, to be able to recognize persons who have been assessed through the RPL model. Then in terms of conversion is about now getting the audience that we have to actually now become like our fans, to keep talking about RPL, to be our ambassadors, to convert them into the RPL mode of assessment as a complementer to the traditional system. Then of course, engagement is more on a long-term strategy. How do we ensure that we have loyalty, we have champions who can push the RPL agenda? Because as we start, we are a small team, but we would like this to to seep through to the whole country to be able to achieve the RPL target as we envisioned. Now, as we thought through this, then some of the questions that we were asking ourselves was, where are we now? Because it's important to understand where you are now, to know where the gaps are and see what it is that you need to do. So on where we are, we were looking at who is our target audience. And the target audience, you find they are quite different. We have the government itself. They also have something to benefit out of it. We have the employers. In Kenya, our main audience is the informal sector, which forms about over 80% of the job market. So that is a major target audience. What are their characteristics? Where do we find them? And what channels can we actually use to be able to get to them? Then the other key question we asked ourselves was on the issue of what is our goal? What is it that we want to achieve with RPL? We need to have that clarity because it informs the kind of message that we will be sharing. Then on the issue of strategy, what are those messages? How do we tailor them to ensure they are actually speaking to the audience, to inspire the people that we want it to inspire? How do we create that connection? That is on strategy. Then on action plan, who does what, when, and how? Remember, I said we have different key stakeholders who are in the National Steering Committee. And what we agreed is we will leverage on each of the key stakeholders. If it's the Federation of Kenya Employers, then we leverage on them to access the employers. If it's the Juakali sector, and Nyamai Wambua is from the Juakali sector, if it's the the informal sector, sorry. If it's the informal sector, then we leverage on their structure because they already have a structure of communication so that we are able to get to the route that we are looking at. Then the last part is the dashboard. This is more on monitoring and evaluation. Once we are doing whatever we are doing, we have to have measures in place to know whether we are achieving our goal or we are not. What do we need to tweak to get back on track? Now, what are the needs for us in terms of communication? There are actually three main needs. The first one is on sensitization and awareness creation, very critical, because we still have cross-cutting, both top level and lower level, who really do not understand what RPL is. So we need to sensitize them. We need to inform. If I use Alexa's words, we need to inform them. And the good thing is when she talked about the stories, last week we had an assessment, the pilot assessment, and we actually captured a lot of video clips. So those are some of the tools that you are going to use to inform the target audiences. Then on lobbying and advocacy, the focus is we would want RPL to be a high level thing, to be integrated probably with some of the policy issues in the government, like in performance contracting, probably we want it to be integrated so that there is budget allocation. For employers, we would like it to go into the part of the training and education budget. So we need to lobby and advocate. So that is a need that we need to have specific messages too. Then of course, looking at it from capacity building perspective. RPL is new in Kenya, so we do not have RPL tool of talent. So we need to build that particular capacity. So when you look at sensitization and lobbying, what we will focus on is what the target audience is and what is in it for me. The YFM is what is in it for me, because that directly links to the value proposition, which makes it easy to inspire and convert that person to be an RPL fan. Then of course, choosing the right channel. Alexa talked about the low-tech. So there are those that we need to use low-tech, but there are those that we need to use high-tech. So we need to identify that. Then of course, now when it comes to capacity building, we need to know where the gaps are, the skills, knowledge, and especially attitude, the gaps, where are they? Then what kind of curriculum can we come up with? Because it will both educate and sensitize. Then they can now be our ambassadors on the ground. Then finally, what we are saying is, as we move forward from the communication strategy that we had, because it's an umbrella, it gives us direction. We need to come up with clear awareness and publicity activities that are targeted to the various audiences with very clear messages and the channels to use to be able to access them. Then we also now need to agree on the rollout of the activities. Here we are leveraging on the infrastructure, the existing infrastructure. So we are not going to create new ones. The existing infrastructure of our stakeholders represented in the National Steering Committee. Then of course, continuous monitoring and evaluation, just to ensure that we are on track, just to ensure that what we thought, the assumptions we made are actually correct. If they are not, then we make corrective changes to that. So that is what we had. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and very interesting presentation on how you went about with what was related to the communication. Can you tell us if you already see some results, or what are the achieved results that you have, or the prospective results that you would like to achieve in a short amount of time?
Probably I can invite our National Steering Committee members. Wambua is here. I think Stanley Maindi are also here. Probably you can assist in terms of answering the questions. But generally, as I had mentioned, we are starting out. So we are more at the infancy stage of this particular process in terms of involving our stakeholders, in terms of messaging to them. So we just needed to get our strategy in place so that when we go out, we are getting it right. We don't have to go back and forth. But I welcome our committee members to equally share their thoughts on this.
Okay, so Stanley and
Yamai.
Yamai, you are called into action. Stanley, please.
Even Geoffrey is here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Anne, and thank you, everybody. No, I don't want to say much. You know, as Anne said, I represent at the National Steering Committee, I represent one of the key stakeholders, which is basically the informal sector in Kenya. And we have worked with all our colleagues at the National Steering Committee to develop this strategy. But as Anne has just said, we are also using it. We are tweaking it as we go because it's a living document. We have used some of the insights in the pilot assessment that we have just concluded last week. And I think it has worked for us, especially for the informal sector to communicate to the candidates, because our candidates are not very well sophisticated group of people. These are, some of them dropped out of the formal education system. Others are not in formal employment. They are largely in the blue, what we may call the blue job market. And therefore, this strategy has helped us. Some of the insights and ideas have helped us to communicate to the candidates so that they show interest. And they have actually, I don't know, I'm not probably the one who's supposed to report, but since we have our chair here of the National Steering Committee, he could probably say what was our level of participation out of all the candidates that went through the assessment, the pilot assessment last week. I may be wrong, but I can tell you it looks like the bigger percentage came from the informal sector. So that could be a success, could be attributed to the communication strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear that also in terms of outcomes. It looks, even if it's starting, it's already promising. Stanley, just 1 minute so that we can then give the floor to our colleagues in Skill Lab.
Thank you. I think Anna and Mai have explained everything. What I just want to say is that the RPL system, this communication strategy built on the existing network, stakeholder network, like NQA being a national regulator, has the entire education and training system in Kenya. So we simply had to build on the existing network of stakeholders. And one special thing with RPL in Kenya is that for a long time, Kenya is one of the countries I could say has been implementing RPL without knowing that it was RPL. So it has been very easy for us to bring on board these stakeholders. And for your information, the process to implement RPL was a demand driven from the stakeholders, especially those from the informal sector, who came and said, look, we have these skills, we have these competencies, we are earning low wages and nobody recognizes. Is there a mechanism that can help us get certification and improve issues of mobility, self-esteem, societal recognition? And therefore, there are now efforts to develop RPL policy came into being. And as Anne said, we are just at the tail end of now finalizing the development of necessary structures and systems, policy guidelines, all the tools, instruments for execution are ready. We had a very successful pilot process, which as we said, over 75% of them came from the informal sector. And I was one of the monitoring and evaluation officers. I went around the assessment centers, and the assessor were amazed by the level of skill, competences that were in these people. So to me, it has worked well. The issue RPL has gotten well to the masses, and as you saw in my response today, this training has also could not have come at a better time than now, because what we are acquiring in line with where we are in the implementation is very critical, and we are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So everybody's happy in Kenya. We will have to see. We will have to talk to you in a couple of years and see how it is. But I think it's very interesting. And the point, and I think Geoffrey is also mentioning it in the comments, the point of starting what was already there in terms of stakeholder engagement is critical. And I think Alexa had already made it clear in her presentation. Start with what you have, because there are forces that are already in place. And I think this is also for how to bring employers on board. I mean, the question that Patrick was mentioning about Liberia. So start with what is there, bring people on board so that they can be the speakers. And I think this is very important, not only to be a kind of a governmental campaigning, but rather be something where already all the strong forces of the society are associated and move forward. So thank you very much. Thanks, Alexa, for your presentation. Thanks, Anne and the colleagues. I mean, we have to say that Jua Kali means hot sun. That's where people in the informal sector are used to work. So that's the reason why in Kenya this is used as a synonymous of the informal sectors. I think it's always a very interesting way to call it. But so we are hearing about the Jua Kali in Swahili about it. So I think it's a very nice point. So now we are going. Thanks, Alexa. Thanks all the colleagues who have participated in this first part. Thanks, Anne, for your sharing. Now we are moving to how can technology be put at the service of RPL? So how can we use technology, leverage technology in order to profile the skills of the people that are approaching the education and training sector and guide them in their career choices, among which there is also RPL. So Asa and Simon, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Stefano. Yeah, okay. Simon, you are muted.
Sorry, I just had to restart my browser so I'm able to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen. It should be a little presentation.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, first of all, a little bit about SkillLab. We are a young company from the Netherlands, and we've been really working on empowering marginalized people, marginalized job seekers throughout the world. Our general approach there is really that that we're using an AI and artificial intelligence to help people explore, capture, and document their experiences and their skills. So we usually work with partners there, and those partners can be public employment services, national qualification offices, Ministry of Labor, to NGOs, to the ILO is one of our partners. That's why we're here. And we work with them to really help them better understand their clients, the skill sets of their clients, and for the clients to really better understand themselves. And I think when we're speaking of awareness and recognition of prior learning, there are really two aspects. And the first one is how do we reach people? But the second one, I think that's really important, is something that Anne mentioned, that what's in it for me. So really building the self-esteem and the societal recognition that people realize, yes, I have skills, and yes, I should document these, I should have these skills societally recognized. And that's really the starting point where we start. And then we rely on our partners and the people we work with to connect the users to validation and assessment. That's kind of our approach. So this is going back to, I think this was module 1 here. This is kind of a flow chart of how recognition of prior learning works, in our opinion, from awareness and information through counseling and facilitation, which we have broken up a little bit here, through assessment, and finally certification. And very importantly for us is the gap training part here. So a little bit, this is going back to the slide by Professor Quinn, the difference between recognition, which is really the societal acceptance, kind of regardless of validation, and then validation itself, which is really technical, and the certification and assessment that leads to a more formal certification. We see ourselves really fitting into the awareness, counseling, facilitation bit here. So SkillUp assists the RPL process by providing information regarding the skills and capabilities of the applicant, which really helps the applicant to determine which skills and capabilities may be suitable for recognition, which may be worth having recognized. By working with our partners directly, our partners can provide direct links through a more formal assessment and certification process, and very crucially, at any point, can help identify gaps that can be addressed through gap training and through further education. So in addition to that, SkillUp is also really, by capturing all of these experiences and skills and capabilities, there really is there is an evidence collection aspect as well. So the facilitation aspect and the precursor to assessment is usually, or in many cases, that applicants have to present a portfolio of their experiences or some sort of evidence of what they've done. SkillUp isn't really evidence, but it is a record of experience. So there's another aspect there that can help in the RPL process. Through all of this, our bread and butter is really career orientation. And our tool is built on the ASCO model, which is the European Classification of Skills, Competencies, Qualifications, and Occupations. It's a skills and occupation ontology that covers over 13,500 skills and 3,000 occupations. It's not really a qualification framework, but qualification frameworks are built on these skills, and these skills and competences and knowledges really relate to qualifications and what you need in order to perform a certain occupation. This is available in 27 different languages, which are all official EU languages, plus Icelandic, Norwegian, and Arabic. Icelandic and Norwegian, not that relevant. Arabic, very relevant for our work. So, and it's an ontology. It's not a qualification standard, but it can map to and it relates to qualification standards. So our real innovation is our data model, and this is where the AI comes in. What you see here, this little universe of little dots, is our data model. So these are 13,500 skills mapped in relation to each other. So for example, you see check dining room cleanliness. This is a skill that's in a little cluster, and someone who has that skill of checking dining room cleanliness is very likely to also have all these skills that are right in the vicinity. So for example, if for check dining room cleanliness, that would be very typical for example, someone who's worked as a waiter, whether informal or informal employment, whether that was at, I don't know, a small cafe that his family owns, or whether at a McDonald's, or what different levels of formality. The level of formality doesn't really matter for us. So all of these skills in that area are very related to that one skill. This allows us to capture all the skills that people have through this AI-enabled interview very quickly, because we don't have to ask about 13,500 skills, but we have an idea that a lot of the skills that a person has will be in that cluster, because that's the cluster that they worked in. So our AI adapts, gets better, learns from the user, and the whole interview is very adaptive. And you'll see this when Azar shows you the demo. So I'm handing this over to Azar right now, because she's way more familiar with the actual project than I am. But this is an example of a project we have, and I'll give the floor to Azar and mute myself.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. I just want to tell you, don't freak out from this diagram that Simon showed you. Now I will show you the tool. It will look like a game, so you will not see all those skills in this way. It will be more familiar to the users. So back to our use case of our tool in different countries, and now we just decided to focus in this presentation on the project where we have partnership with ILO in different countries. So mainly we are working in Egypt and also in Kenya with ILO. In Egypt, we are working with a local partner for ILO called ABA, or it's a vocational training center. They are helping refugees to link them to relevant training and sustainable jobs. The case that I will show you how they use the applications will be related to a real case from ILO project in Egypt. And also in the same context, we have our partnership with ILO in Kenya. We are working with DRC, NRC, and also Don Bosco. They are using our tool to help also refugees in Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps, to help them to know more about them, to know more about the skills that they just brought from their different countries, that they gained from their past experiences. And also after they knowing more about the refugees, it will be easier for them to link them to relevant upskilling opportunities and also jobs. So now I will just, steal the screen from Simon and just jump to the tool, the real tool. So I just want to start with a real profile. So we have, I just duplicated a profile for a real user, just to change the name, change the photo for the privacy, the sake of privacy. And I will tell you the story about this lady. She is Soha Al-Najjar. She is a Syrian lady. She moved from Syria to Egypt since 2016. Soha studied in a formal university. I will show you her experiences. Soha studied as or accountancy in Damascus University, and after that she had a job as an accountant. But unfortunately, when the war started there, the factory just destroyed, so she became jobless. After that, they just stayed at home working. Sorry, just taking care of her kids. Sorry for that. So taking care for her kids, cooking, housekeeping, as all the mothers in the world doing. And after that, when she moved to Egypt, she tried to find a job. It was so difficult for her to find a job in accountancy because she already just left working as accountant for many years, and it's so difficult in Egypt. Even being an accountant or to find a job as accountant in Egypt is so difficult because there is no demand, there is a lot of supply there in Egypt. So she decided to follow her passion and to work in something she likes, which is cooking. And everyone in the world know how the Syrian food is so delicious and tasty, and there is a lot of people in Egypt like her food and the meat that she's preparing. So she started to make a project for herself as a private chef, and using social media to market for her product. So she just go to parties and cook for people there. But unfortunately, she had this job only for 1 year because it was so difficult for her to have this as a business, because she was doing this as informally at her home, and this is her hobby and passion that she was following. But she still wanted to do that in a formal job, let's say. So when she was connected to our partners in Egypt, ABA, she used this application, and after identifying the gaps, it was possible for ABA to link her to a relevant TVET opportunity or a technical training or vocational training to help her to be employable in this sector. So this is the profile of Soha. Now, first of all, I will just show you how Soha filled all this information in her profile and how it was possible for her to identify her career goal and also the gaps that she needs to identify, need to cover, and also how our partners in ABA were able to connect her to a relevant vocational training. So this is the teasing bar part of this. Now I just want to jump to how our application would be used in such cases. So first of all, the users will create a profile. Usually we send, or our partner send an invitation for their clients to use our tool. So when they they click just in the invitation link, they can just be directed to this page. They can just do an account as easy as you see here. So password, let's say Soha. We can skip this. And here we go. So this is the first screen after the user will sign in or to register for a new account. The application will ask them, okay, add the skills, but we ask them from where you got those skills. So the users will to select one of those options that we have in our application. As you see, we have job, and we mean in job as any formal job, paid working, internships, even if it's self-employment, also as long as they get income from this job. So from this activity, let's say, we categorize it as job. And also education, any degrees, training, courses, vocational training can be filed under this type of experience. And also we added other experiences, and other experiences allow people to add all the activities that they are performing or they had during their life, and which is not included or it's not under the job category. So if anyone doing any hobby, if anyone doing any activities with their family, taking care of their elder people. We know that there is a lot of people, especially when we are talking about migrants and refugees, they have a lot of gaps in their career. So they just stay at home and taking care of their family or doing informal activities. And we in Skill Lab believe that it's so important to capture those skills. Any activity the person would do in their life, they would have or gain a lot of skills from it. So it's we help people to capture and explore those skills in addition to the skills that they gained from their education and job experiences, and invest and build on the skills that they already have from those experiences. So let's see how Soha would file her job experiences. So Soha, as I just said, she was working as an accountant. So she was working at Al Huda factory and in Syria, and it was in Aleppo. So here the application will ask the user, will ask Soha, okay, tell me more about the job that you are doing. We are not asking here about the job title, but we are asking about a keyword to tell the application from where to ask Soha about her skills. So Soha, she was working an accountant. It's so clear, so we can just say accountancy or accountant. And then the next step, Soha can just change change the title name. She can say accountant lead or something. However, she wants this to be reflected in her CV. So here we ask about the number of days per week that Soha worked this job. And this is so important because this will be reflected in the intensity of the strength of the of each skill. After that, we will see like the whole list of skills, the aggregated list of skills that Soha have. We will see how this would be affected by the number of days and also the period of time that a person worked during a specific job. So as we mentioned before, that Soha started to work this job since 2008. And she just stopped at 2014, unfortunately. She had to leave her job and stayed at home. So now Soha filed the first experience. And now it will be the role of the artificial intelligence engine to help Soha to explore, express, and capture her skills. And the application will start to ask her for each skill if she performed this skill while she is doing this job. So let's see how the application or how this interview will be done by with Soha by our artificial intelligence engine. But before the application would also like to suggested for Soha which skills did you use or learn. So we can just have just start from any skill from the list with the one that we see it's relevant. So let's say that Soha started with this skill and the application asked her, how often did you use this skill? Like support development of annual budget, maybe Soha would say, yes, I did this for a long time. And then she can add more skills about her job. And our artificial intelligence system here will change the line of questions based on each answer. So if Soha answered this question as never, and I will do next, the application will say, okay, if you don't know this skill, so you may know this skill. And if I say, yes, I know this skill, the application will tell, okay, if you know this skill, so this is so relevant also to this skill, so maybe you know this skill, and so on. So the application will keep asking Soha this question or the user, and sometimes the skill title is not clear enough for a person to say, okay, prepare tax returns forms. I have no idea about taxes and financial idioms, so I can just, or Soha or any user just can press here to see what does that means, what the skill titles mean. So this will help the user to take a better decision on if I am doing this as always or never or whatever. So the application will keep suggesting those skills to Soha, and every time Soha will finish a package of, or let's say a list of skills, the application just celebrate with her that, okay, it's like levels. You finish this level, so just go to the next level of questions and the skills. Let's say that Soha, she already knows some of the skills that she used to do them every day. So let's say something relating to budgets. So she can just search manually to those to see those skills if they are exist or not. So she can select the skills that she thinks that they are relevant to her experience, or she performed those skills while she was working. So let's say anything, update budget or something like that. So evaluate budgets, maybe she was doing this, but not every time or every day or always, and the same thing related to update budget. But the idea that the application will start asking the questions that Soha selected, and then continue the skill assessment to make sure that Soha captured and explored those skills. As you see here, the skills are so granular, so Soha will have the opportunity to think and to see, okay, maybe I was doing something in general, but I can't know exactly how to express this, or how to she would never be able to remember all those details of the skills that she knew or she learned about about during her job. So the application will ask her those questions in detail. So after she will finish all those skill assessments for all the jobs, we can, or the application can identify the relevant career or identify the gap. So this is an example for a skill assessment for a job experience. So let's go back to the CV tab. Why I am seeing this? Oh. Okay. So I don't know why it's like this. Okay, so let's go back to the CV tab and to add another experience. Let's say add education. As we said before, Soha just added, she had a degree as accountant. So simply as any CV builder, she can just add the field of study, we can say accountancy, and the application will start also, yes, she has to write the university. Yes, Damascus University. And I will just select this as quick because we already have her profile. Okay, so now the application, Soha file the first or the education experience that she has. So the application will suggest also skills for her and to tell us about the knowledge that she learned during her study in the university. So she can also select the skills that she already learned during during her study. So we can just she can just continue doing this this way. So now in this simply this way, just to have filed all the knowledge and the information that she knew or she learned while she is studying accountancy in Damascus University. Now, the most important one is the informal experience. So if she want to add skills from other experiences, not job education, so let's see how this will look like here. So as you see here, we have different categories of informal experiences that a user would do during their life. So they are, let's say, Soha, as I just said, she stayed at home for a while because she wanted to take care for her kids. She lost her job. She had no opportunity to find job after she lost her job. So Soha said, I just was staying at home for housekeeping, for cooking, for child rearing. So everything here, every activity that Soha did should be captured, the skill that she gained from those experiences. I'm just selecting randomly some dates. So now the informal experience is filed, and the same way as the job experience was the skill assessment for job experience started as we see it before, it's the same here for the informal activities. So I can start from here and keep answering those questions as this way. So Soha or any user will keep doing this skill assessment, selecting the skills that they have, ignoring the skills that they don't have, and so on. So mainly, this is exactly the functions that our application do, or how our application help our users to capture their experiences and the skills that they gained from different type of experiences. I just wanted to show you how this is processed. And now, as a next step, I will go back for the full profile for Soha to show you what is the result of all this process. After Soha just finished and filled all the experience, the skills from all the experiences, let's see what the application will give her. So As a result, the application told Suha that there are different careers that need your skills. So the application gave her, for sure, accounting, banking, and finance as a field of work, and also gastronomy and hospitality, because we know she had a lot of skills and different types of skills. But in this case, Suha already know that she want to continue working formally as a chef. So she selected the chef of kitchen as a career goal. So the application told her, okay, you have good match, but you still have 25 skills required for this career. So the application here gave her the skills that she has and those skills required for this occupation or this job. And also the application tell her those are the skills that are needed, but you still need to cover or to learn them to be employable at the job that you want to work in. And this is what we call the gap identification. So in this case, the application identified for the Soha the gap that she needs to cover, so she would be able to work the job and the job that she wants. And as you see, everything like related to the to this job, for example, as advise customers on seafood choices, check delivery and receipt. And we know from Soha's story that she didn't work like so closely to customers. She was working her private project. So there is a lot of technical skills and management skills and a lot of skills that she needs to work formally in this sector in Egypt. So in this way, Soha and her client manager will be able to identify the next steps of working to be ready to work on this job. So now, before just going to the second part of our application and to show you how our partners will be informed about all of those information, I just want to show you the last feature here in our application, which is the CV. The users will be able, the users are able to download their CV in any language that you want. So if Soha, her English language is not good, and it's clear from her profile, she wrote that she has beginner level of English, so she can she entered all her experiences and skills in English, in Arabic, and she can have the results, or let's say generate many documents from this tool in any language she wants. So the first document here is CV. So let's say in English, and I just want to show you quickly how our skill-based CV, how it will look like and what the information will be included. So here, as an example, Soha, she had like all her experiences, and for each experience, as a result from all the information that Soha filled in the skill assessment or skill profiling process will be reflected here. So the application just put here the skills that, or the knowledge that she learned from her education, and also she learned the skills that she had or she gained from her past experiences. Also, it is reflected here from each experience and also from other experiences. And the good thing here in our application that maybe Soha doesn't want this to be at her profile. So she said, no, I don't want this to be at my CV. So I have to stop. I don't want it to be deleted, to be shown here. So Soha has the opportunity and the control on her profile, and she can just click or hide it from the PDF CV. And if we just have the CV again, we will find it just deleted from the CV. Yeah, so it's not here. And now we are just developing the CV to be more customized based on the job and the career goal that each person have, and we will reflect also do this aggregation for the data, the skills based on the skill type, if it's technical or soft skills, and other information related to what vocational training, the courses will be just reflected at the CV more. So this is one document, and also there is another document the users can just find like the list of the skills that the skill match that they have, what are the jobs that they need their skills in general, so they can just generate this document if they want to discuss it with their career advisor or mentor or whatever. So I just, for the sake of the time, I want to jump to the second part of our application, which is the Career Counselor portal. In the Career Counselor portal, all the information that filled or collected from all the users in a specific project will be reflected here and displayed here. And it will be displayed also based on stages related on how, at what stage of the progress that each user just stand now. So we have the list of invited people. We have the people they started to use our tool and they didn't have still, they didn't finish the skill profiling process for all their experiences, and also the profile completed skill. Those people just had all their experiences and their skills. So this help our partners to monitor and follow up with the clients. So let's see, as you see here, Soha is not here and it's not here. And this is because Soha, as a result of using our tool, she is graduated from this this phase of the project, which in ABA they are calling it skills like classification phase. They just make sure, or they help people to, as I just said, to identify the skill gap and to know exactly what are the next steps. So after using our tool and based on her profile, Soha was linked to a vocational training to be ready to be formally employed in a restaurant. So let's see what the career counselor would see in the profile for a person like Soha. So she will see the recommended occupations based on her skills, and give her even information about each occupation, because we know not everyone working in this career counseling or mentoring would be able to know every occupation, what does that mean, and what the description. So even the coach and the coachees will be in the same page based on definitions. And also it will reflect or display for the career counselor what is the career goal for this person, and then start to see the skills that they are needed and the skills that they are or she already have by, for example, downloading this document, which is the third document. Also, just for you to know, this document can be generated from the mobile application. So as a coach or career counselor or mentor, I can know, okay, those are the essential and optional skills that Soha already has, and those the skills that Soha needs to learn. So this is the gap that Soha need to cover, so she would be employable at this job. And other information would be known here is the list of skills. And this is like a report of all the skills that Soha have and she gained from all her experiences, and also the personal information about Soha that she already filled. So all the information that was filled in the CV in the mobile application will be found here at this let's say administration portal. So in general, this is all about our tool or our application. A lot of other functions can be needs to be like a lot of other things like filtering, and if you want to search about people with different skills, and especially in in a specific group. Let's say we know that Suha, she already has accounting skills. So let's see how it will be filtered. She will be filtered because I just selected the filter to see someone has experience or has skills related to accounting. And the same for occupation. I can see who has job as an accountant, and it will be filter the people who have experience in accounting and just rank them on based on who is the strongest at this accountant. So in general, this is more or less our everything about our tool and how our users or our partners using our tool to help people to identify the career gap, or before even identifying the career gap, to make their skills and knowledge visible, and then to help them to cover the shortcomings, or let's say the gaps that they need to be covered.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I already saw that the Q&A session is underway in the, let's say, in the chat box. So no worries, and thanks, Simon, for, I know you do a wonderful team with Azza while she's presenting. You are taking care of all the questions. I want to underline some of the points, and also this was the reason why I invited Simon and Azza, whom I thank really and dearly for their time to this webinar. So first of all, I think what we need to underline is the potential of the use of artificial intelligence, because this actually guides the potential in the let's say RPL user to create a to better understand their own career path and the possibilities that they can get. So this is the first thing, and it's not, this is a tool that actually an RPL counselor or career guidance officer could use. The second very, very important thing, in my opinion, is that the application, or in any case, through the work that SkillUp does, this gives you already the idea of which are the skills that are missing in order to potentially get a full qualification through RPL. So this is, of course, very important. Okay, the only critical detail, which is, of course, not a detail, is that SkillUp is constructed, as someone said, benchmarked with ESCO. So if your country is not following ESCO or a similar taxonomy, of course, there may be issues, but maybe Simon is going to give you more information on this topic.
Yeah, yes, we rely on ESCO to classify the skills. However, we can and we have mapped to different occupational taxonomies. So if you, for example, if your occupational taxonomy is based on the Australian model or ONET or whatever it might be, or a specific national qualification model, we can map to that and relate the 13,500 skills to those occupation. And that's not, it is a bit of work, it is a bit of extra work, but it's entirely possible, and you'll receive the same, like the same quality and the same level of service as you would if you were using ESCO occupations.
But I think what is very important to stress here is that actually we want and this is I think also something that we take away as RPL people, is that we want to really benchmark our screening activities, our first steps with the individual, with the competencies that are there in the occupational standards and in the qualification standards. Technology makes it easier and gives us the possibility actually, and this is also very important, and thanks Azza for sharing what the RPL counselor sees, because actually this is very critical in order to support the RPL counselor on how to guide, how to support the experience of the individual, and also which are the profiles that actually, and the qualifications that the potential RPL user could go for. Because I think this is also very important to underline, because we tend to think very often that what we call in our jargon the ERPL, so the digitalization of RPL, is related to the digitalization of the process of validation, of assessment, etc., etc. But here, what is important is that technology gives us the possibility to ease all the steps of the RPL process. And in particular, thanks to the colleagues of Skill Lab, we had the opportunity to see how this can also get into the RPL world. I want to maybe just say something about the point that Soha was making in the chat box that is related to the evidence. The idea is that through this kind of tool, you do not deliver a qualification. The tool is a self-assessment, is to support, is to guide the individual in let his or her skills arise. And I think this is very critical, and the example that Aza has shown is very relevant, because if a person, in this case, a woman who has done, let's say, housekeeping duties, you actually would maybe not consider those skills as skills that you have, because you would see them as disconnected from your work pathway. But a tool like that, and artificial intelligence in particular, gives us the possibility to let them emerge. And if we let them emerge, this is the first step to let the system recognize and validate those skills. So I think there is a very important element there of not forgetting skills that individuals have. And we tend to think that, well, okay, this is not related to my job, this is not related to my work, but yeah. Digitalizing the validation process of RPL in the current COVID era. We are going to speak about it in some weeks. I mean, it's not really related to here. A couple of questions, maybe Simon and Aza, on inclusion, exclusion. I mean, is the use of technology exclusive? I see Kenneth is giving examples. So how can a person from the informal sector access this kind of tool? But Kenneth, these guys are using that in refugees camp. So, I mean, it's not all like higher education graduates. So maybe Aza, Simon, you want to share this, this experience?
Yeah, I think Aza can actually share the practical experiences. I believe we've done our very, very best to make the tool as accessible as possible and designed it with human-centered design principles in mind, made it as user-friendly as possible. It's very, thus far, we've had cases where caseworkers and administrators had to help people use the tool because they're not digitally literate at all, because they're literally illiterate, like they couldn't read, so people read the questions to them, etc. But Aza can speak to those. We've basically used them with the people the furthest removed from the labor market that you can imagine, and it's worked out thus far. So from our end, we think it's very inclusive. Aza can probably give some really good practical examples.
Yeah, exactly. The first example just came to my mind, that when we had an interview with one person was comparing between our tool and different platforms that helps them for capturing their CV, let's say like LinkedIn, for example. And then when I asked him, okay, what do you think that the difference between a tool like this and LinkedIn? And he told me, when I go to LinkedIn, I feel I am freaked out. This is not the place for me. All of them, they are so professional. I can't just add my skills there. But using our tool, he felt like, okay, this application is done for him, and it helped them more to be comfortable and to add all the skills that they have. So every time we have the question about the people who don't have high digital literacy, they are not so familiar with those platforms that would help them to be connected to different opportunities of learning, of education. But our answer always that, okay, our tool will help those people who don't have access to those WSUSI platform. It's an opportunity for them to be assessed, to capture their skills, and to capture the experiences that they already have had before. In addition to that, there is a lot of people in the, let's say, the marginalized job seekers when we're talking about refugees, migrants, youth, elder people, women, all of them, the traditional, let's say, the traditional systems which relies more on the experiences, the job titles, and the degrees, and they don't have this anymore, or they don't have those shiny titles and education, or their education titles are not recognized in a country. Our application helped them to overcome that by using the skill language, as we say, and to help them to capture all the skills that they gain, and just to go over or to come over the dilemma of reporting the education and the degree titles, and that should be recognized in host country if we are talking about migrants and refugees.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's very important to underline this. And is it fully, and this is, I have just one question, and then I give the floor maybe to Maria for another question that she has asked, because I think it's also critical. Is it only used to self-assess, or what is the, or could be the role of an RPL counselor in order to use the app together with the person as, let's say, a tool that they would work in tandem? I mean, they would work that jointly. Or do you see it only as a self-assessment tool, or let's say as a tool that the person uses alone?
Exactly. This is a self-assessment tool, and this is a tool that would be used as a prior steps of like the step of assessment in the in the process, the context that we are talking about today. So the first step, as I just saw in those presentations that we had today, that this would be really used to help people to report and document the skills that they have, and after that the assessment and would be with from our partners. As an example for ABA, and maybe they are not using it as a context or under RPL, but they are doing this as a step for apprenticeship. But after using or after having this as the classification process, they have interview with their case manager, and to ask them, for example, for Soha, okay, you say that you have experience in cooking and you have skills in cooking. Show me, what did you do before, or what are the evidence of the skill that you have related to that you were reported. So this is just done by interviewing the users after using our tool.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. Maria, can you please, maybe you want to ask your question live, and this will be the last one.
Thank you, Stefano. Yes, Asa and Simon, it's very interesting. I'm Maria, and I work for European Training Foundation. We advise our partner countries, which are countries surrounding Europe, in qualification frameworks. And that's why I asked my question, because it seems to me like there could be a very good potential for the application to link also with the NQF databases, which are being gradually established, that also include the information on the training modules to basically support career guidance counselors, or maybe just the individuals in guiding them. Okay, these kind of skills you could find in this and this provider somewhere in your country or in your province. Do you see it in the future? Do you see it possible, and what conditions have to be fulfilled for it to happen?
Yeah, I think it's ready to answer now.
Simon, that's your problem now.
I saw the question in the chat, and I was like, this is something we're really excited about and that we've been working on, which is integrating course catalogs from vocational training institutions, from colleges, from online course providers, etc., to really build out like an end-to-end ecosystem where people can self-assess, identify their own skill gaps, and then find courses to fill those skill gaps to connect them to their career goals. So this is an example profile of Precious Turai. And I'm just not going to go into detail, just going to show you the careers tab, which is the same tab that Azza has shown you before. But for example, she's identified these different career goals here. And if we go into detail on one of these, for example, for au pair, we mapped the course catalog. This is from South Devon College, which is a VET college in the south of the UK. But in theory, this is possible for all education providers and all course providers. And we suggest courses that match the interest in this career and that address the needed skills identified. So obviously, if you wanted to map out the entire educational ecosystem of a country, it's a lot of work. But we developed this natural language algorithm. So we're using AI to read out the course description from a course catalog, tag them with skills, so machine annotate the course description with skills, and then give this back to the course provider to confirm that those are skills that are actually taught in that course. So that's how we're currently doing this. We're trying to minimize the workload for each course, but it's still a little bit work intensive to map a course. It takes about maybe five to 10 minutes per course. But if you imagine an entire course catalog, an entire educational ecosystem of a country, obviously a lot of work, but it's something we're really excited about and working on.
Yeah, let's say also that, and I think this is also a key takeaway for our participants. If everything is really learning outcomes based or skills based or competency based, then you are able to actually not only support the career guidance of people who want to get an RPL, they would also be able, as in this case of the South Devon College, to also find a top-up training opportunity, because then let's say the taxonomy of the skill would all refer back to the national qualification framework and the qualification standards that come with. So I think this is a key issue that maybe we want to underline here. Dunstan, how do you select the most appropriate tools essential to deliver and implement RPL assessment at higher levels, especially in vocational training? So here we are getting into the methods. We are going to talk about it next week. For now, I think we can stop here. It was a very interesting webinar today. We spoke about two things that, as Simon said, are very much interlinked. So bringing people to the system and then support them. Of course, both are very much interesting for our e-learning course. Thanks to Anne once again for presenting us the experience that they did in Kenya. It was wonderful to hear also the different stakeholders confirming. Thanks to Alexa for the useful tips and tricks for, let's say, defining effective campaigns. So I think, and in general, communication strategies, I think it was very interesting, very hands-on, and this could lead to further reflection for our participants. And last but not least, thanks Azza and Simon. I think you presented your application. This gives to our participants a lot of thoughts on how to better integrate and better carry out let's say skills profiling, but more in general counseling for the RPL potential users. And I think this idea of the career goals should be the one that should be our North Pole when we are discussing about RPL, because really what we are here for is to serve people, to serve their careers, to support them in their mobility, in their let's say in their also lifelong learning, let's say, pathways. So I think using technology can support these kind of processes. Once again, thank you very much for all. You have your activities, learning activities for the week. So not only this webinar, but you will find some other things to do in the platform. I'm not recalling here. And we will meet next week for our weekly webinar. Have a good learning week together, and thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
bye-bye. Have a
Bye.
good rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Ciao,
you.
Maria. Thanks. Bye-bye.